Jason walked alone through the thick alien forest. His boots sank slightly in the soft moss beneath him, and the tall trees around him whispered with the wind. He was tired, cold, and ready to return to his camp. He had come to this planet to explore, to be alone, to forget his past as a soldier. But something about this place didn't feel right today. The air was too quiet, the wind too still. Then he heard it, a small voice, far away, crying out, "Human, help my mom. Please. She's trapped." Jason froze. That voice was not human. It had a strange echo to it. Soft but not mechanical. It was a child, and it was crying for help. Without thinking, Jason turned toward the sound. He moved quickly, dodging low branches and climbing. Over roots, the voice led him deeper into the forest, where no explorer usually dared to go. After a few minutes, he reached a small clearing. There, standing in the center, was a young alien girl. She had silver blue skin, big, glowing eyes, and small crystal-like horns on her head. Her clothes were torn, and her legs were scratched. She looked scared. Her eyes filled with tears. Jason raised his hands slowly, showing her he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said gently. "I'm here now. Where's your mom?" The girl pointed behind her, into a darker part of the woods. "She's stuck in a hunter's trap. She can't move. She's bleeding," the child said quickly. Jason nodded. "Take me there," he said, and followed her without question. They walked for about 5 minutes, the trees growing tighter and the light dimmer. The girl moved fast, her small feet barely making a sound. Jason could feel his heart beating harder. Something about this place felt dangerous, like he was being watched. Finally, they stopped near a large tree with strange markings on it. There, lying on the ground, was the girl's mother. She was tall, graceful, and beautiful in an alien way. Her skin was a soft, light pink, and her hair flowed like glowing threads. But she was in pain. Her leg caught in a large spiked trap made of black metal and bone. The trap was unlike anything Jason had seen before. It was alive, twitching, pulsing, as if it enjoyed holding its victim. Blood, dark purple in color, was leaking from her wound. Jason rushed to her side. "I'm going to help you," he said calmly. Kneeling beside the trap, the mother looked at him weakly, her voice a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here. They'll find you too." Jason ignored her warning and examined the trap. It had no release button, no visible lock. He took out a small multi-tool from his belt and started working carefully. The alien girl knelt beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. Jason used a torch to see better, but the light seemed to make the trap react. It hissed, and one of the spikes moved slightly. Jason flinched, but kept going. He pressed a wire deep into the metal joint, trying to override its movement. Click, a soft sound. Then one side of the trap loosened, but before he could finish, a loud hum filled the air. Jason looked up, his eyes wide. 3 floating drones appeared above them, shining red lights everywhere. The girl screamed and hid behind Jason. "They're the hunters," she cried. "They kill anyone who touches the traps." Jason stood in front of the 2 aliens, holding up his hands. The drones scanned him with sharp beams of light. One of them charged a weapon, ready to fire. Jason quickly pulled a small EMP grenade from his belt and threw it. It exploded mid-air with a bright flash, shutting down 2 drones instantly. The 3rd drone flew away, fast, probably going to alert others. Jason didn't wait. He yanked the last part of the trap loose and helped the alien mother to her feet. She cried out in pain, but managed to stand. With his support, "We need to move now," he said. The child led the way, and Jason carried the mother on his back. They rushed through the forest, branches hitting Jason's face and arms behind them. The sound of more drones began to rise. After what felt like forever. They reached a small cave hidden behind a curtain of vines. The girl pulled them aside and motioned for Jason to go inside. He carried the mother in and laid her down on a soft patch of moss. The mother looked at him, her eyes filled with both pain and wonder. "You saved me," she said, "but now they'll come for you too." Jason looked at her, breathing hard. "Then we'll fight them together," he said. Outside in the deep woods, the hunters began their search again. But inside the cave, for the first time, a human and two aliens prepared to stand as one. Inside the small cave. The air was damp and cold. Jason knelt beside Liara, the alien mother, checking the wound on her leg. The trap had torn deep into her flesh, and her skin looked pale. Her daughter Nira sat close by. Holding her mother's hand tightly, Jason knew he didn't have much time. The drones would come back, and next time, they wouldn't be alone. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small med kit. It wasn't designed for alien biology, but it was all he had. "This might hurt," he warned. Liara nodded. Weakly, Jason injected a healing foam into the wound, and Liara winced in pain. Nira looked away, her small face full of fear. Suddenly, a faint noise echoed outside the cave. A mechanical click, followed by a buzzing sound. Jason stood up and moved silently toward the entrance. He peeked through the vines and saw shadows moving between the trees. "They've already found us," he whispered. Jason turned to Nira. "Is there another way out of this cave?" Nira nodded quickly. "Yes, a tunnel in the back. But it's small. You'll have to crawl." Jason helped Liara up again, supporting her with one arm. They moved slowly toward the back wall of the cave. There, hidden behind a pile of rocks, was a narrow tunnel just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Jason let Nira go first. He followed, helping Liara crawl behind him. The tunnel was dark, tight, and wet. Their clothes scraped against the rough stone, and the sound of their breathing echoed around them. Behind them, they could hear faint thuds, the sound of boots or machines entering the cave. They reached the other side of the tunnel, a small exit leading to the base of a rocky hill. Jason stepped out first, scanning the area. The forest was thinner here, but still full of danger. "We need to move fast," he said, helping Liara stand again, but she was too weak. She stumbled and nearly collapsed. Jason picked her up in his arms. He wasn't a young man anymore. And Liara wasn't light, but he didn't hesitate. Nira ran beside him, pointing the way. "There's an old energy spring nearby," she said. "My people used to rest there. It's safe. The hunters can't detect us if we go deep enough." Jason followed her, moving quickly through the brush. Behind them, the buzzing of drones grew louder again. One appeared above the trees, scanning and beeping. Jason ducked behind a fallen log, holding Liara close to his chest. The drone hovered, scanning the area, then it moved on. They waited a moment before moving again after 10 more minutes of climbing and dodging. They reached a rocky slope. At the top was a cave, but unlike the first, this one glowed faintly with a strange blue light. As they entered, the walls shimmered with soft energy. Jason felt a strange warmth in the air. "This is it," Nira whispered, "the spring inside." Jason placed Liara gently on a rock bed near a glowing pool. The energy from the spring wrapped around her like mist. Her breathing became easier, and the pain on her face slowly faded. Nira sat beside her and smiled. Tears in her eyes, Jason leaned back, finally letting himself breathe. But the moment of peace didn't last. A soft beeping came from Jason's wrist device. He tapped the screen, and a red warning flashed. They were still being tracked. Jason cursed under his breath. "These hunters are using advanced tech," he said. "They're not just here for sport. They're targeting anyone who breaks the hunting law." Nira looked confused. "Hunting law?" Jason nodded. There are black market hunters who set up traps on unprotected planets, he explained. They use them to catch rare species like your kind and sell them to the highest bidder. Liara opened her eyes, her voice weak but steady. We've lost many to them, she said. We tried to run, but they always find us. Jason clenched his fists. I won't let them take you, he said. Not while I'm still breathing. Outside the cave, another drone passed over the area. Jason watched its lights through a crack in the rocks. He knew they couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they would be surrounded. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. He looked at Liara, resting quietly now, and Nira sleeping beside her. They had trusted him, a stranger, a human when they had no reason to. Now he had to earn that trust. Jason opened his backpack and pulled out a small tablet device. He tapped the screen and began drawing up a map. If we make it to the old relay tower to Valley's east. He whispered to himself, I can send a signal, call for help. But that would mean going through even more dangerous terrain. It would mean more drones, more traps, and maybe worse. Still, Jason didn't hesitate. He looked back at the two aliens sleeping beside the glowing spring and made a silent promise. He would not let them be hunted. Not while he had the strength to stand. The energy spring glowed softly in the darkness. Jason sat near the edge, sharpening a piece of metal into a makeshift blade. He didn't sleep. His eyes scanned the forest entrance again and again, listening for any sound out of place. The quiet was dangerous to quiet. Still, the alien mother and child needed rest. He would watch over them, no matter how long it took. Liara slowly opened her eyes. She looked stronger now, her breathing normal and the color returning to her skin. Jason turned to her and gave a small smile. You made it through the night, he said. Liara sat up with effort and looked around. Her daughter Nira was curled beside her, asleep with her head on Liara's lap. You saved us, Liara said, her voice soft. I didn't think any human would ever do that. Jason looked down at the blade in his hand, then set it aside. I didn't plan to, he admitted, but your daughter's voice. I couldn't ignore it. Liara watched him carefully. Her eyes were large and bright, glowing slightly in the dim light of the cave. You're not like the others, she said. Most humans we meet only bring fear. Jason nodded slowly. I know, he said. I've seen what humans can do. I was one of them once. Liara tilted her head. Curious, you were a soldier. Jason chuckled bitterly. I was more than a soldier. I was a weapon, he said. Trained to destroy, not save. He leaned back against the wall and stared up at the cave ceiling. I left that life because I didn't like who I had become, he added. I came here to find peace, but I didn't expect to find you. Liara reached out and touched his arm. Her fingers were cold but gentle. Maybe the stars brought us together for a reason, she said. Jason looked at her, surprised by the softness in her voice. You believe in destiny? He asked. Not destiny, she replied. But connection. Life ties us together in strange ways. Nira stirred and slowly opened her eyes. She saw Jason and smiled sleepily. You stayed, she whispered, crawling toward him. Jason smiled and nodded. Of course I stayed. He said, I gave you my word. Nira sat beside him and looked at his chest armor, touching the worn metal. What's that symbol? She asked, pointing to a faded mark. Jason hesitated, then sighed. That was my unit, the Ghost Division, he said. We were trained to go where no one else would, to take out the threats no one else could face. Nira looked impressed. But Liara frowned. Many in the Ghost Division came to our worlds, she said. They didn't come to save. Jason nodded. I know, he said again, and I'm sorry. A long silence followed. But it wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful, like something unspoken was being understood between them. Finally, Lyra said, "You carry regret, but also hope. That makes you different." Jason stood and checked the entrance again. The sun was rising, thin beams of golden light cutting through the mist outside. He looked at his tablet, scanning their route. "If we move now, we can reach the old signal tower before night." He said, "It's risky, but if I can send out a distress call, someone might come. Someone who can help you leave this place." Lyra tried to stand, her legs still weak, but not bleeding anymore. "I will walk," she said firmly. "I won't slow you down." Jason shook his head. "You're not slowing me down. You're the reason I'm moving at all." Nira laughed a little, and Lyra gave Jason a small, grateful smile. They packed their small supplies, wrapping roots and spring water and folded leaves. Jason gave Nira a piece of chocolate from his rations, and her eyes lit up. "This is amazing," she said with a full mouth. Jason laughed for the first time in days. "I used to think the same," he said, "back when I was a kid." As they walked out of the cave, Lyra spoke again. "My people don't understand humans," she said. "They only know the ones who hunt, destroy, and take." Jason looked forward, scanning the trees. "That's fair," he replied. "Humans can be monsters, but they can also be protectors," Nira said suddenly, grabbing Jason's hand. Jason looked down, surprised. "Like you," she added, smiling. That single sentence warmed something inside him, something long asleep as they walked through the thinning woods. Jason realized this wasn't just about escape anymore. He wasn't just saving strangers. He was starting to care. Really? Care for them, and that scared him more than any drone or hunter, because caring meant risk. Caring meant pain. But it also meant purpose, and for the first time in years, Jason wanted that again. Together, they stepped out of the trees and into the open hills beyond. The signal tower was still far away, but they walked as one, a human, an alien woman, and a child whose voice had changed everything. Asterisk, the sun was high now, and the air was getting hotter. Jason led the way across dry hills, his eyes scanning the sky every few seconds. The terrain was more open here. No trees to hide behind, just rocks and dust. Lyra limped beside him, her injured leg wrapped tightly with fabric from his bag. Nira followed close, quiet but alert, holding Jason's spare scanner like it was a toy. They had already walked for 2 hours since leaving the glowing spring. Each step took them closer to the old signal tower, but also closer to danger. Jason could feel it, the tension in the air, the silence of birds, the faint hum in the wind. The hunters were near again. He knew their style: attack when the prey feels safest. He wasn't going to let that happen. Not this time. "There's a ridge ahead," Jason said, pointing. "If we can reach the rocks and hide, we'll rest for 10 minutes. Lyra nodded silently, her face pale from the pain. Jason offered her his arm, and she took it with a thankful nod. As they neared the ridge, Nira stopped suddenly. Her small hand tugged at Jason's sleeve. "Something's flying above us," she whispered. Jason looked up, shielding his eyes from the bright sun. A sleek shape glided silently across the sky. A hunter drone. It was scanning slowly, searching the ground with red beams. Jason dropped to the ground, pulling the others down with him. "Don't move," he whispered. "Don't breathe too loud." The drone hovered for a few seconds, then turned and floated away. Jason exhaled, but not in relief. "They're sweeping the area," he said, "which means they know we're out here." They made it to the rocks and crouched behind a large boulder. Jason checked his tablet, but it was glitching. The drone's signal had scrambled its systems. "I'll need to reset it, but not here," he muttered. Suddenly, a small sound clicked behind them. Jason turned fast, gun raised, but it was too late. A metallic net burst out from the ground, wrapping around all three of them. It hissed as it tightened, the edges glowing with heat. Liara screamed in pain as the net touched her injured leg. Jason struggled, trying to pull out his blade. But the net shocked him with electric pulses. Nira cried out, her voice sharp and terrified. From the hill above, 2 hunter machines appeared. They walked on 4 legs, with sharp claws and glowing eyes. They looked like animals, but moved like trained killers. Jason knew them, Mark 7 field bots, illegal and deadly. One of them scanned their faces and voices, unauthorized contact. Between species, it said, subject to capture and processing. Jason growled and pulled a hidden wire from his jacket. He touched it to the net. A small spark shot through it, disabling 1 layer of the field. That was enough. He pushed. Nira through the gap and shouted, "Run to the valley." Now? The little girl rolled away just as one of the bots lunged. Jason freed one arm, then stabbed the blade into the net's anchor node. It sparked, flared, and the whole thing collapsed. He stood quickly and helped Liara to her feet. The bots charged, fast and brutal. Jason threw a flash grenade, and white light exploded in all directions. "Come on!" he shouted. They ran down the rocky hill, chasing after Nira, who was already ahead, behind them. The bots recovered and began firing blue plasma bolts, hitting the dirt just inches from their feet. Jason fired back, using short bursts, too. By time his old soldier instincts took over, his hands steady, his eyes sharp. But they couldn't keep running like this. They reached the base of the hill and found Nira hiding behind a large metal structure. It was part of an old cargo station, abandoned years ago. Rusted and falling apart, Jason dragged Liara inside the broken walls. "I'll hold them here," he said. "There's a narrow tunnel under this place. It leads to the signal tower." "You'll die if you stay," Liara said, grabbing his arm. Jason looked at her, eyes fierce. "Maybe," he said. "But you and your daughter will live." He stepped outside again, setting up 2 explosive charges on the walls. The bots were coming fast. No hesitation, Jason ducked behind. Cover. Waiting, timing, then, boom, the charges exploded, sending metal flying and dust into the air. One bot was torn in half, the other damaged but still standing. Jason ran, firing, dodging, drawing it away from the cargo station inside. Liara pulled Nira through the dark tunnel Jason had shown them. They crawled through the narrow space, their hearts pounding. Tears filled Liara's eyes. Not from pain, but from fear for the man who stayed behind. Above, Jason ran out of ammo. But he didn't stop. He pulled out a second EMP and threw it at the remaining bot. It exploded, sending out a pulse that finally dropped the machine. Jason dropped to his knees, exhausted, his body trembling. But he smiled, because the tunnel was still open, and they had gotten through. The hunters had struck again, stronger this time, but they hadn't broken them. Jason had fought back, and he wasn't done yet. The tunnel was long, cold, and silent, except for the soft breathing of Liara and Nira. Their hands and knees scraped against stone as they crawled forward in the darkness. The only light came from the dim pulse of the alien crystal Liara carried. In her hand, behind them, the sounds of explosions had faded. Still, Liara couldn't stop thinking about Jason. He had stayed behind to fight machines meant for war, and he might not have survived. "Do you think he's okay?" Nira asked in a quiet voice. Liara paused, then nodded slowly. "He's strong," she whispered. "Humans like him don't fall easily." But her heart was heavy, and her thoughts were full of fear. After what felt like hours, they reached the end of the tunnel. A metal hatch blocked the way, old and rusty. Liara pushed it with all her strength, and it finally creaked open. A wave of fresh air rushed in, warm and dry. They stepped out onto a flat stone platform, and there it stood. Before them, the old signal station. It was tall, made of black metal and cracked glass. With vines crawling up its legs, the dish at the top was bent, and half the solar panels were shattered. but to Liara, it looked like hope. If Jason had been right, this tower could still send a distress signal, maybe even to someone who cared. Nira ran ahead and reached the station door. "It's locked," she said, pulling on the handle. Liara touched the panel next to the door, which blinked faintly. "It needs power," she muttered. "Old solar design." She looked around, then pointed to a small energy box at the back. "Help me with this," she told Nira. And together they removed the dusty cover. Meanwhile, back at the cargo site, Jason was alive, barely. His face was scratched, his arm burned from plasma fire, and he limped with every step. But he had survived, and more importantly, the two aliens had escaped. He used the last of his water to clean the wound on his arm. Then he looked up, spotted the direction of the sun, and smiled weakly. "They're headed for the tower," he said. "I just have to catch up." He walked slowly at first, leaning on a metal rod as a cane. Every movement hurt, but he didn't stop. The thought of Nira's voice, her laughter, her small hand in his, pushed him forward. And Liara's eyes, filled with strength and sorrow, gave him a reason to keep going. By the time he reached the edge of the ridge, the sun was beginning to set, and there it was, the signal station. Standing like a black tooth against the sky, Jason smiled again. "They made it," he whispered. Inside the station, Liara had managed to reroute the solar energy using the remaining panels. The lights flickered on, weak but working. The communication panel glowed faint green, ready to send a message. Liara tapped the screen and began inputting a distress code. But halfway through, a loud warning flashed. "Warning. Hostile tracking beacon active." Nira gasped. "They followed us." Liara stepped back from the console, shocked. "No? This station was marked. They expected someone would come here, outside." Jason noticed the flashing red light at the top of the tower. His heart dropped. "It's a trap," he growled, and started running. At the same time, hunter drones rose from the ground near the base of the hill, 3 of them larger than before. With armor plating and heavy weapons, they moved fast, targeting the tower. Inside, Nira grabbed Liara's hand. "We have to go." But Liara shook her head. "If we leave now, the message won't send." The screen on the console counted down, signal preparing in 60 seconds. Jason reached the base of the hill and began firing his last energy rounds at the drones. He took one down, but the other 2 advanced. He shouted, "Toward the tower! Hold them back! Just 1 more minute!" Nira picked up Jason's old blade and stood beside her mother. Together, they faced the entrance, ready to defend the console. Jason ran inside just as the second drone fired a missile. It hit the side wall. The explosion rocked the tower, sparks falling everywhere. But the signal countdown continued, signal preparing in 30 seconds. Jason grabbed a metal rod and stood in front of the console. "We don't let them past," he said. Liara and Nira stood beside him. "No," Liara replied. "Not this time." The final drone burst through the broken wall, roaring with mechanical fury. Jason threw the rod like a spear. Striking its core, Liara fired a stolen plasma weapon, and Nira jumped to the side, throwing rocks at its sensors. Together, they fought like a team, not human, not alien, but family. Signal preparing in 5 seconds, the drone fell, smoke rising from its broken shell. They all turned toward the console, hearts pounding. Message sent, the screen flashed green, and a beacon shot into the sky. A call for help, a call that could change everything. Jason dropped to his knees, laughing through his pain. "You did it," he said, looking at Liara and Nira. "We did it," Liara corrected him, smiling through tears. Outside, the night sky blinked with stars. But now, one of those stars might be blinking back. Asterisk night had fallen over the broken signal station. The stars above were bright, but they offered no comfort. The message was sent, The beacon had fired, but now came the waiting. Jason sat with his back against a wall, his body aching, every muscle sore. Liara cleaned the cut on his forehead with a damp cloth. Nira rested nearby, watching her mother with wide eyes. Trying to stay brave. Do you think someone will come? Liara asked quietly. Jason gave a slow nod. If anyone's listening, they'll come, he said. But it might take time. Just then, a sharp noise echoed in the distance, a loud mechanical growl. Jason's hand shot to his weapon. Even though he knew it was nearly out of charge, "They're not done," he muttered. Liara stood up, her face pale in the moonlight. "They're coming again, aren't they?" Jason nodded. "This is it," he said. "They know we sent the signal. Now they'll try to erase us before help arrives." From the shadows at the edge of the valley, the hunters returned. Not just drones, but full-sized war machines. Four-legged walkers with mounted cannons, armored drones circling above. And behind them, a tall figure in black armor. The commander. Jason recognized the design immediately. Elite mercenary tech. Not government, not official, private, illegal, and deadly. They had sent their best to finish the job. Jason stood slowly, ignoring the pain in his side. He turned to Liara and Nira. "Get inside the tower," he said. "Seal the doors." Liara shook her head. "No, we stay." Jason stared at her. Surprised. "You might die," he said. "We might live," she replied. "But only if we fight." Jason smiled. "Just a little. You're more human than most humans I've met," he said. Liara smiled back. "Then let's show them what humans and aliens can do together." They moved quickly, setting up whatever defenses they could. Jason placed mines at the entrance, using old wiring and leftover explosives. Nira helped by spreading oil across the stone path, slippery and flammable. Liara powered up the tower's emergency lights, flooding the area in pale blue glow. Then they waited. The first attack came fast. Drones swooped in, firing plasma bolts. Jason rolled into position and fired back, hitting one in mid-air. The mine exploded as a walker stepped forward, shaking the ground. The blast knocked it back, legs sparking, inside the tower. Nira guided Liara to a side panel. "There's an old defense cannon here," Nira said. "I think I can fix it." Liara watched as her daughter connected wires and bypassed circuits like a natural. "You've been watching Jason too much," she said. Nira grinned. "I've been learning outside." The battle grew louder. Jason took cover behind a broken satellite dish, firing at the advancing machines. His weapon beeped, nearly drained. He tossed it aside and picked up a heavy pipe instead. A drone rushed him and he swung hard, smashing it into pieces. Then, the black-armored commander stepped forward. He raised a heavy plasma rifle and aimed it directly at Jason. "You're a fool, human." The commander growled through his helmet. "No one's coming and no one cares." Jason stood tall, breathing hard. "I care," he said. "And that's enough." He rushed the commander without hesitation. They clashed metal against metal, skill against brute force. Jason was faster, but the commander was stronger. Inside the tower, Nira shouted, "Cannon online." A loud hum filled the air as the mounted cannon rotated toward the battlefield. Liara aimed and fired. A beam of energy shot across the valley, hitting one of the walkers and blowing it apart. Jason looked up and smiled. "Nice timing." He muttered, ducking another strike. The commander tried to shoot again, but Jason tackled him. They rolled across the ground, locked in brutal combat. Jason saw the plasma blade on the enemy's belt and pulled it free. He stabbed it into the armor's joint. Sparks flew. The commander screamed and fell back. Jason stood over him, panting. "You lose," he said. But before he could finish, a loud rumble shook the ground. Above them, bright lights appeared in the sky ships. Large, sleek, and shining rescue ships. The signal had worked. Drop pods landed around the valley, and soldiers in clean armor spread out, firing at the remaining machines. The hunters were no match for trained forces. In minutes, the battlefield was quiet again. Jason fell to his knees, exhausted but alive. Liara and Nira rushed out of the tower and wrapped their arms around him. "We did it," Nira whispered. Jason nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "We made our stand." The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke drifted slowly through the valley. Mixing with the soft morning mist, the rising sun painted the broken metal and scorched earth in gold and orange. Jason sat on a rock, his armor cracked, his face tired, but beside him, Liara held his hand gently. Her leg was still wrapped, but she stood on her own now, stronger than before. Nira ran back and forth, her laughter light and joyful. She stopped near the wreck of a hunter drone, poked it with a stick, and ran away giggling. Jason smiled as he watched her. "I forgot what that kind of sound felt like." He said. Liara followed his eyes and smiled too. "It's the sound of freedom," she whispered. Rescue ships hovered above, soldiers cleaning the area and collecting data from the wrecks. Medical drones scanned the survivors and offered supplies. One officer, tall and serious, approached Jason with a salute. "You're lucky we caught your signal when we did," the officer said. "Not many people make it out after encountering these hunters." Jason nodded slowly. "I didn't." "Do it alone," he said, looking at Liara and Nira. The officer looked at them and raised an eyebrow. "Aliens." "Friends," Jason corrected him. The officer paused, then gave a small nod. "Well, there will be questions, paperwork, and scans," he said, "but for now, you're safe." Jason stood and walked slowly toward one of the ships. Nira rushed to his side and took his hand. "Do we get to ride in that?" she asked excitedly. Jason chuckled. "Yes, kiddo, we do, inside the ship." Everything was clean and quiet. Soft lights glowed along the walls, and the air smelled like fresh metal and electricity. Jason sat down near a window, and Nira climbed up beside him. Liara followed, her eyes scanning every corner carefully. She had never been inside a human ship before, and it felt strange. Not bad, just knew a medical drone floated over and began treating Jason's wounds. He winced as it cleaned the burns on his side. Liara moved closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You should rest," she said softly. "I will." Jason replied, "But not yet." A screen on the wall flickered to life, showing a map of the region. Jason looked at it and pointed. "Theirs. A refugee center 3 zones east," he said. "They can help you." Liara looked at him with a questioning gaze. "And what about you?" Jason paused. I haven't thought that far," he said. "For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living." Liara smiled. "Then come with us," she said gently. Jason turned toward her, surprised. "With you?" "Yes," she nodded. "You fought for us, you bled for us. And you gave my daughter hope. To us. You are family." Nira leaned on Jason's arm, eyes closing as she got sleepy. "I want you to stay," she mumbled. Jason looked down at her, then back at Liara. He felt something deep in his chest. Not fear, not pain, but something warm. He had been a soldier, a weapon, a wanderer. Now, he felt like something else, something he had never imagined. He felt like a father. The ship lifted off, slowly rising above the forest and into the sky, through the window. Jason saw the broken signal tower disappear behind the trees. It had been a battlefield, a place of pain and courage. But now, it was just a memory as the ship moved faster. Jason leaned back. He closed his eyes, letting the soft hum of the engine lull him into peace. Beside him, Nira slept soundly, and Liara watched them both with calm eyes. The nightmare was over. The hunters had lost, and something new had begun later. At the refugee center, Jason helped Liara register their names. There was confusion at first, a human bringing in alien refugees. But Jason stood firm. "They're with me," he said. "Whatever rules you follow, remember this. I didn't save them because they were alien. I saved them because it was right." That changed everything. Word of what Jason did spread quickly. A human risking his life for an alien mother and child. People listened. Some doubted, but many were inspired. Other refugees came forward, and slowly, something began to shift. Fear turned into curiosity, suspicion into questions, and for the first time, humans and aliens sat side by side at shared tables. Jason wasn't just a survivor anymore. He was a symbol, not of war, but of hope. Not of power, but of unity. As weeks passed, Jason built a small home near the refugee center. Liara grew stronger every day, and Nira went to school with human children, and every evening, Jason would sit under the stars with the 2 lives he had saved. Not as a soldier, not as a hero, but as something far more rare, as family.